What's up, everyone? Kevin Allen here, aka the Geek from DFS Army, and this is your Draftkings NFL Week 3 first look. All right, let's get right into it. We're taking a look at all of the Week 3 salaries over on DraftKings, see who looks good, who looks bad, get a first look at the slate in general. And as you know, the way I like to do it is before we jump into the actual salaries, I like to look at the game tiles a little bit, just get a look at all these games, see where the green is, see where the red is, the stay away. The green means go, red means stop. You know how it is. So we are taking a look at the DFS Army Domination Station Optimizer, and these are the game tiles where we can sort of get a sense of the slate with some game totals and some team totals. And looking across the board, first game, we've got the Ravens at New England. New England, a very good defense. The Ravens coming off a monster game. You know, Mark Andrews and Bateman are always going to be in play in these types of situations. Jacoby Myers coming off a pretty big game for the Patriots. This is a game where I think the Patriots will lean the run, and I'll get a little bit of interest maybe in Ramondre Stevenson, but this low 43-point total has me turned off a little bit on that one. We've got what is a fairly high team total here for the Chiefs. They're at the Colts, and the Colts are going to be interesting. We'll see if they have Michael Pittman back. If they don't, I think we can go to some players on the Colts, especially in the passing offense, trying to play catch up in a game like this. Might see some Ashton Dulin value again. We were all over Ashton Dulin last week, and that worked out pretty nicely. So we'll see about that. On the Chiefs side, the Chiefs offense is really hard to predict outside of maybe Travis Kelce, and I'd probably lean towards staying away even with the high team total outside of maybe just going with Mahomes. Next, we've got the Saints at the Panthers, and this one's a pretty gross 40-point total. Not a game that I'm looking to get heavy involvement in. Saints traditionally very good against running backs, so kind of takes Christian McCaffrey off the radar here. And the Panthers team's not that good. I could see, Saints wide receivers maybe, but probably not. Not in a 40-point total. Another game with an ugly total here is the Texans at the Bears game. Even with this bad total, I think both running backs in this game at least carry some mild interest. Dameon Pierce looked to take the lead role. After Rex Burkhead got all the touches week 1 for Chicago, Dameon Pierce gets all the touches week 2. Rex Burkhead got nothing. Interesting. I'm sorry, not for Chicago, for Houston. And on the Chicago side, I have to say that David Montgomery looked pretty damn good running the football last week and getting workhorse touches. So both of those running backs carry some mild interest as lower cost running backs on the slate. Here we've got the Bills at the Dolphins, and the Bills are just a team, an offense that's incredible every single week. Dolphins looking pretty good too. I had the Millie Maker game of the century last week at Baltimore. If you did not play Tua and his 2 pass catchers, you probably didn't win the Millie Maker. So taking a look at this one here, I definitely like some pieces from this game. It's hard to trust Miami. Buffalo defense is so freaking good. I don't know if I want to go chasing waterfalls with Tua this week, but Josh Allen is always going to be in play every single week. Here's a game that's pretty exciting. We've got the Lions at the Vikings. 52-point total, biggest total on the slate. I love Vikings games. They tend to go high scoring. So this is a game I'm going to have a lot of interest in. I love games indoors in a dome. That tends to increase scoring as well. Yeah, I like everything about this game. Amon-Ra, the sun god. We can go right back to Swift here if he's healthy. We can go right back to Justin Jefferson on the Vikings. The secondary guys aside, Justin Jefferson is that focal point of the passing offense, and maybe Dalvin Cook, although, man, I'm having a hard time trusting Dalvin Cook this season so far, but maybe we'll go back to him. We'll see what the salary looks like. Bengals at the Jets. This might be, Bengals have been producing really good defensive scores against them every single week. Jets kind of popped off last week out of nowhere. So I think there may be some sneakiness to this one here. Maybe Joe Mixon on the Bengals side seems really interesting. Nick Chubb, 3 touchdowns last week against the Jets. So that style of running back really can do well in a game against the Jets. And on the Jets side, Garrett Wilson, I'm not ready to trust that. I'm not ready to trust any Jets players. No, not ready. I'm like a like a spouse that's been cheated on. I can't trust again with the Jets. Can't trust. Washington at home taking on the Eagles. Love the Eagles. Love Jalen Hurts. Love AJ Brown. Just a really good team to target for fantasy production. And Washington's been really good as well, with Jahan Dotson doing damage, Curtis Samuel being my favorite, and the forever overpriced Terry McLaurin, who just is always overpriced. And Antonio Gibson, as long as he continues to be the starter. So, the Washington side definitely carries some interest. Wentz as well. And the Eagles side carries a lot of interest with Hurts and his crew. I'm not interested in the Eagles running backs, though. That is just not my thing. Next up, we've got the Jaguars at the Chargers, and it feels like a get-right game for the Chargers here. Jaguars, always play well against the Colts, but I think they're going to probably have a little more trouble on the road here against a tougher Chargers defense. Austin Eckler is interesting. I want to see if Keenan Allen is out again. If he is, I think we go right back to Mike Williams. That dude, when they throw to him, he produces. So the biggest problem with Mike Williams is just the times they just won't throw to him, which I don't really understand why. Austin Eckler has not been the guy. He's kind of priced a little bit too high for the touches and role in this offense. So I'm probably going to stay away from Austin Eckler until that salary comes down a bit. We'll see when we look at the DraftKings pricing. Here we got the Packers at the Bucks. This is an ugly one, 40-point total, 41-point total. That is not for me. The only player of interest probably going to be Leonard Fournette. He's priced down a little bit, a couple duds, but he's getting insane work. So we'll take a look at him. Rams at the Cardinals. Cardinals just look a bit out of sorts this season so far, but we'll see if they can turn that around. Marquise Brown's been overpriced for the role he's been given. Are we going back to Greg Dortch? Maybe. Not excited about it. On the Rams side, of course, we can go right back to all of our studs. The interesting thing that happened with the Rams this past week is at the running spot, Cam Akers is starting to get worked in, and now we've got a full-blown committee. I actually think we'll see Cam Akers potentially emerge as the primary in the committee. So he looked good. He looked spry out there. I mean, it's amazing what a week can do. I'm really not sure what to make of this Rams running game, and we might not get it figured out the whole season or until one of them gets hurt. So stay away for now. On the Cardinals side, you really don't want to target running backs in a game like this against the Rams, but Connor got dinged up a little bit, and we did learn that Damian Williams, or whatever Williams brother is on the Cardinals, is the starter. It's not Eno Benjamin, so pick him up for your bench if you have Jimmy Connor as your starter. Finally, we've got an ugly one, 42-point total, Falcons, Seahawks. I am not interested in just about anything on the Seahawks, but maybe Kenny Walker seemed to take over a little bit or got some touches last week. Maybe he's going to be taken over as the lead back, but I don't trust that at all. On the Falcons side, I mean, I guess Cordero Patterson is going to be interesting here a little bit, as well as Drake London. Drake, ain't nothing changed but my lamp, London. He looks really good out there, and he looks like a thing. So with that being said, let's go to the DraftKings leaderboard here, or the DraftKings salary board, and we can take a look at some pricing. And it starts at the top at the quarterback position. You've got a couple studs here that I think stand out. Josh Allen every single week, very, very much playable. No problem plugging him in if you don't mind paying the highest price for a quarterback. Moving down, Lamar Jackson coming off the big week, but not in the greatest of matchups at New England. Not something where you have to stay away, but probably not something I'm actively, aggressively going to target in that low total game. Pat Mahomes, always playable in GPP, always playable in cash. He should have a fine game here at Indianapolis. Not the easiest to stack outside of maybe Kelsey. It's tough to say which one of those pass catchers is really going to emerge as good. Jalen Hurts, I think, is one of the preferred targets, though. It's amazing how he's priced all the way up here, but certainly looked fantastic on Monday night. This guy is putting up numbers, 37, 24, throwing it well. The stack with Hurts to A.J. Brown is definitely in play here. So we'll keep that in mind. Moving down the list, Kyler Murray, no, not really going to target teams at the Rams. It's not my favorite. Kirk Cousins could be playable here at home against the Lions. That's the blow up spot, right? That's the spot where you could pop and you save some salary compared to Hurts and the rest of them. So certainly Kirk Cousins is a bit of a viable pay down, but 6,700 still a bit high priced for him. Stafford on the other side of that Cardinals game, probably even more interesting here at 6,500. If the Cardinals can make a game of this, Stafford has to throw a bit. Obviously he's an easy stack with, well, not easy, but he's stackable with Cooper Kupp. We probably expect Cooper Kupp to have a good game, but you probably need a second piece with Stafford if he's going to pull off a big win. Not really interested in Aaron Rodgers in that game. Carson Wentz is okay. He's had, we played him last week. How great was that? He was our play of the week last week, and he absolutely smashed. So if you watch this breakdown, you probably had a pretty good week. Didn't win the tournament, didn't have Tua, but you had Carson Wentz in cash instead of Derek Carr, and that worked out really nicely for us all across DFS Army. We were able to avoid Derek Carr, especially in tournaments where I thought the field was just being weird going after him. Tua at Buffalo, we're not chasing Tua's big week last week. Tom Brady, no weapons for Tom Brady. Mike Evans out. Godwin out. Julio always hurt. Who's he throwing to? I don't like it. Russell Gage. Not enough weapons for Brady to produce the way I need him to. I mean, Derek Carr, if you wanted to have a cash guy, it's probably fine at 5,900. Again, I know we avoided him last week for the most part because there were better plays, and I thought that one was weird. But Derek Carr will probably pop a little bit as a safe play. Again, Derek Carr, not a quarterback that normally passes 23, 24 fantasy points, but that might be enough for this 5K salary level. For the 6K salary level, 6,8 and 24. Yeah, he could probably get you right there. And I do like that he's cheaper, a little bit cheaper than he was last week. Jared Goff salary going up. I mean, he has the one good game. I don't trust it. Tannehill is a never play him. He's been horrible. Mariota is interesting. If you're looking for the cheapest viable, I just don't like the total on this game, but certainly Mariota carries some interest if you want to kind of get a cheap viable guy and an inexpensive stack with Drake London. Beyond that, it's all pretty gross here. So for me, we're going to plug in Jalen Hurts here as the week one guy. I have no problem if you wanted to pay up to Josh Allen or go down even to a Matt Stafford at 6,500. I think Matt Stafford is actually a really great play as well. And if we need to save some salary, we'll take a look at him. All right. Second area I like to look at is defense because we're not going to analyze it too deep, but we're going to try to find the cheapest viable one. And realistically, it's tricky. I guess you could play the Lions and just punt it all the way down to the cheapest one at 2,200 and say YOLO because, we're not really going to be excited about a defense against Buffalo or against KC. Jacksonville on the road, not super excited about that. Eagles have looked great. I don't really want a defense against them. So, again, it doesn't look very good down here. And I think the viable defenses are these two, Raiders, Jets. And I know it's crazy to think to play the Jets, but my goodness, Joe Burrow's taking sacks nonstop. Maybe the Jets can sack him. And the other team that's been a bit out of sorts has been the Titans. So, even playing the Raiders against the Titans, all right. If we had to go up a little bit, New Orleans, Carolina at home facing the Saints. Jameis Pick-Sixton, he's doing his thing out there, throwing those interceptions. Those turnovers are happening. So Panthers need the win really bad. So that one's interesting. And of course, even Falcons at Seattle, Geno Smith. So there are some cheap defenses to target this week or middling, but there is not one defense in this zone that really stood out to me as a must play. I don't love any of them. You got to pay up real far to get anything decent. You got to really pay up a lot. So the defense position this week feels like just punt it and move on. All right, let's talk running backs here, and we'll start at the top with Jonathan Taylor coming off a bit of a rough one, but he'll bounce back. Yeah, just one target. I don't love the, we saw the floor for Jonathan Taylor this week, and it's ugly. It's ugly when he's not smashing. They don't throw to him. He's kind of like a Derrick Henry type player. They were down big, though. We'll see if that happens here again. But, there is danger in paying up that high. Christian McCaffrey in a very brutal matchup against the Saints. At least he's at home. But again, that's a high price to pay for any running back. He's got to get 8 to 36 fantasy points to deliver tournament value. He could get there very easily. It's Christian McCaffrey, but it's not a great matchup. 40-point total. I don't love it. I don't know that I'm going to force myself to spend up there. Derrick Henry could have a bounce back week against the Raiders. He just needs his team to be competitive. The touches just aren't there when his team falls behind. And that's been the problem with Derrick Henry throughout his career. He can give you dud games when his team's not good. And I talked about this in the offseason, how the Titans just are not as good of a team this year as they had been in the past. You've seen it. They're feeling the loss of AJ Brown. It really, really hurts that team. And also just haven't replaced him. They don't have a good wide receiver. So you could really focus in on Derrick Henry and their running game. And it's hard. That's a tough spot for the Titans offense. Austin Eckler has not been the guy that we had hoped in terms of volume. And if you take a look at, he had even with 10 targets and 9 receptions, and all of that work against KC, he barely made value. And a lot of this was, late in the game. So this was all kind of fourth quarter, the classic Chargers hurry up offense, passing game work. He's a dangerous play. The upside is massive. The upside is massive in this spot against Jacksonville at home. Like, everything stands out. Other than that, it's a very high price to pay for a guy who, if he doesn't get the passing game work, and he could not have it. The week before, only 4 targets. I don't think we can count on 10 targets. The touchdowns haven't been there. The rushing work just has not been there, but he could pop off at any time. So more of a tournament play for me. Dalvin Cook has yet to have a good game this year. This is as good of a spot as you're ever going to see, though. So if Dalvin Cook doesn't kind of break out here, he might never do it. Interested, but again, I lack confidence because we haven't seen him do it this season. I think he's a great tournament play. Joe Mixon's really interesting at the Jets. Nick Chubb, 3 touchdowns in this matchup this past week. Joe Mixon still getting a ton of work, even though this at Dallas, he didn't have a big score. He got 20 carries, 4 targets, 27 and 7 and 9 targets the week before. Hasn't had the breakout game, but we know Joe Mixon has led tournament winning teams frequently in the past. So this is maybe a get right spot for Joe Mixon. And if you could pair him up with Cincy defense, I think that's kind of interesting as well. Aaron Jones, probably not the spot for him here. On the road at Tampa, very good run defense. DeAndre Swift, man, he got you there last week on minimal touches. Just the one big play. Let's see what the health situation looks like for him. Kamara, again, health situation. We got to watch out for that. Leonard Fournette, I do like in this spot. Look at all this volume he's been getting. 24 carries, 20 carries, some targets. I like Leonard Fournette. I like him even better. The Bucs are going to have to lean on him even harder with sort of Mike Evans out and just issues for them at the pass catching spots. So Leonard Fournette is somebody I think I'm going to plug in here at 6,500. He's cheap, and I like the spot for him. Gibson is another guy that, he's getting the work. I wish it was more on the carry side. I wish he was just a better running back than he is. I just hate to say it, but, they put him on the goal line to smash in. He just has a hard time finishing these drives, getting those touchdowns, especially via the run. I understand why the team, is looking elsewhere. He just has a tough time on the goal line, and that really keeps his scoring down. He had a bunch of goal line carries in this game, and it just didn't do much with them. Averaging 2 yards per carry. It's not good. It's not good. But this is a much better matchup for Gibson at home against the Eagles. Eagles' run defense, not what it used to be. So I'm going to plug him in there, but I'm going to keep looking down the list here. There's a couple other running backs that I find interesting. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been putting up decent numbers week in and week out. James Robinson will not be stopped. He's a really impressive just player in general, and even in sort of not this isn't the kind of matchup on the road underdog where I look for the running back, but he does carry some interest. But the other guy that I'm actually quite interested in is David Montgomery, and you know what? He looked good out there running the football to me against the Packers, and I think we're going to get more of the same here against the Texans. So if I need to drop one of these guys and save some salary, and let's just do that, let's drop one of them and plug in David Montgomery. I like David Montgomery. He's under 6K, and this doesn't feel like a week where I feel a lot of certainty at the running back position, so might as well kind of pay down a little bit. A couple other names that are floating around that I want to address. Cordero Patterson, actually playable in this spot. I would like to see him get a lot more targets than what he's getting right now, but he had the big week 1, and quite honestly, assuming that their running back's not coming back, they're going to lean on Cordero in this spot. This is a much better matchup for the running game. I'm mildly interested in Cordero in tournaments. The running back situation for the Rams, untenable right now between Henderson and Cam Akers. Akers actually got 15 carries, 3 targets. He had a lot of usage, and it might be shifting over to the Cam Akers show. Only 10 rushes for Henderson, but you really just can't trust what the Rams will do. We need to see it a couple more times before we can trust it. Beyond that, Josh Jacobs lost some work to Zamir White, but not that much. He's still getting a heavy workload. He's just not doing much with it. Is this a spot where he can do some damage? Road favorites against the Titans? Maybe. Tournament only, right? GPP. Beyond that, it gets pretty ugly down here, and there's one more name that I guess we can address, and that's Dameon Pierce. I wanted to mention him because even though this game isn't high scoring or projected well, that means the running game should be involved. But what I just like is his usage: 15 carries, 1 target. More importantly, if you look at Rex Burkhead, just 3 targets, no carries. So obviously they shifted, and now it's the Dameon Pierce show. So I don't know what happened week 1. I don't know if this is going to be a back and forth affair. I don't know what certainty we can glean from whatever happened there, but looks like Dameon Pierce is the guy now. So all of us that drafted him and were crying week 1, hey, rejoice. It's the Dameon Pierce show. Let's see what happens. All right. At wide receiver this week, top of the board makes sense. It is always going to be Cooper Kupp. He's the man. Justin Jefferson coming off of a bit of a down game. This is a bounce back spot at home against Detroit. I love Justin Jefferson here. Again, price a little bit restrictive. Devontae Adams, same deal. Had the down game week 2. It was chalk explosion, stud off a dud. Always want to go back to that. We got 2 stud off a dud situations with Jefferson and Adams. Obviously, they're very expensive. Jamar Chase, always going to be more of a tournament play, splitting those touches with T. Higgins. Wow, Stephon Diggs had the game of the week. I mean, if it wasn't for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, we'd be talking about Stephon Diggs and his 47-pointer on Monday night. 3 touchdowns. What a game for Diggs. And I think, a lot of that is a result of Gabriel Davis not being in the game as well. They just had no one else to throw to. And you saw it play out. This is an offense that scores a lot. They don't really score with their running backs. So somebody's catching touchdowns. And if one of the main guys is out, and it's just a mental note, if one of the main guys is out, the other one are going to do it. So keep that in mind. Tyreek Hill coming off the big game, but this is a tough matchup against Buffalo, so that's going to be tournament only. AJ Brown coming off a down game where Hurts spread the football around, but I don't give a fuck. I'm going back to it. Going right back to AJ Brown here. I don't mind. Scrolling down, Mike Williams. If Keenan Allen's out, have some interest here. Mike Evans will be out. Terry McLaurin, again, never worth playing. Just hasn't delivered value against that salary. Terry McLaurin is a mystery. Why he hangs out at 6K, 6,500 for multiple seasons while never, ever making value. He is the most overpriced player on the entire DraftKings ecosystem. He's the most overpriced of them all. Just doesn't belong there. He belongs in the 5K range until further notice. Now, that doesn't mean he can't pop off. He has 25-point, 30-point game upside, but they're not using him that way. So, yeah, no. Christian Kirk has had some good games this year, averaging 23.3 fantasy points per game. That's crazy good. We cannot ignore something like this, so keep that in mind. I'm not into Higgins or Metcalf. Lazard, no. Brown, no. Not getting the targets. Michael Thomas, horrible game environment, but I guess it's okay. Thielen, the number 2 wide receiver for 5,900 in an offense that wants to focus. He's not the focal point of his offense. Absolutely does not deserve this salary. Stay the hell away. Brandon Cooks finally under 6K. I don't mind that. Again, not in love with the game environment, but I think Cooks can have some success in a game like this. I don't know that we have 30 plus upside, but we certainly can get to that 20-point number. Tyler Lockett, just delete him from your player pool. Drake London is interesting. If we played a starting stack of, I can't remember his quarterback's name, but if we played a starting stack of Mariota to London, that's an interesting starting stack. Cheap. Drake London, in case you don't know, 18.5 fantasy points per game. These things are real. 12 targets last week, 7. He is getting the looks. I don't love. I don't love the game total, but I do love that they only throw to him. So that's interesting. Bateman in a tough matchup at New England, but playable. Allen Robinson, similar deal. I don't mind him. I don't mind him at all. He's not the focal point of his offense. So I think the games where we get 25 plus from Allen Robinson are going to happen, but they're few and far between. Cooper Kupp absorbing a lot of that goodness. DJ Moore, really disappointing season so far. I'm not ready to go to him. Definitely not in a tough matchup against New Orleans. Juju Smith-Schuster, not excited about him either. Garrett Wilson, not ready to chase that big week he had last week, although you got to respect the fact that he looks like the number 1 wide receiver for the Jets. Oops. Elijah Moore best ball bros are fucking crying right now, even though I warned you. They're all crying. They're like, no, he's going to come back. Okay. Yeah. Keep targeting players from the Jets. Good idea. All right. Devontae Smith. Yeah, he had a nice little week this past week, but and if I'm pairing up somebody with Hurts and I need to, it could be Smith. He could have a big game, but even a big game really wasn't that big for him. So, it's fine. Jacoby Myers, another guy coming off a big game, but the cheat code who we are plugging in is Curtis Samuel, and this guy's volume is incredible, averaging 10 targets per game, and he's catching most of them because they're around the line of scrimmage. Needs the touchdown to get you there, but this is exactly the kind of player we want. I love this game environment. Matches our quarterback wide receiver stack, so we add another piece to our stack here with Curtis Samuel. Love him. I feel like he's the cheat code this year. This is the new Deontay Johnson. We play Deontay Johnson almost every week for multiple seasons. They would never bring the salary up enough to match the 10 targets per game that he was getting. And that feels like Curtis Samuel right now. While he's healthy, I'm all about it. Jacoby Myers coming off a 13 target game. Never a guy who's going to smash a lot of touchdowns, but he can get you some PPR goodness. Baltimore, not an intimidating matchup for wide receivers, obviously, after Tua just torched them. All of the Baltimore secondary was out last week, and they might not be back. So, he's somebody to keep in mind. Just going to keep going and see if we can discover any other players of interest here. I'd say Russell Gage is interesting. With Mike Evans out and Bashard Perriman, Russell Gage are kind of going to be the primary pass catchers for this team. I could see Russell Gage popping off. I still think his salary is a little too high for what we expect from him week to week. But, all right. Another guy I'm interested in here is Jahan Dotson. He did it again last week. I mean, that salary's coming up, but it's not too bad still. I don't know if he could do it 3 weeks in a row, but certainly Jahan Dotson is in the mix. I'm just going to kind of, maybe we need to go cheap here. And Greg freaking Dortch did it again. Keeping him in mind, I guess. The Rams have been a team that you could throw on, I suppose. So, maybe Greg Dortch does it again. 4 of 4, 7 of 9. Rondell Moore needs to be out for that one to be relevant. As we continue down the list here, it gets pretty ugly from here. I can make an argument for Bashard Perriman at 3,900 as the number one wide receiver with Evans out. So that is going to be my guy. Mike Evans is out. And I do think that Jair Alexander might not be on Perriman. I think he might be on Russell Gage, or I don't see a shadow coming in this game. 3,900. I'm probably gonna take a swing at Bashard Perriman here in this lineup because I think we're gonna need the salary savings based on what I'm seeing. So, normally when I make a lineup, I do try to punt the tight end position, but obviously Travis Kelce's a good play. Obviously Mark Andrews is a good play. He was my core play last week. The Andrews play was fantastic last week. It really worked. Darren Waller finally got some targets, but I'm not ready to trust him as a pay-up tight end. Kyle Pitts finally coming down in salary, more to where he belongs. He has not proven that he is an elite fantasy producer. Hasn't shown that. It's been all potential. He's been priced up based on potential, not actual scores. So he's finally coming down to the zone where he belongs. Dallas Goedert does fit our Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Curtis Samuel sort of matchup. So I don't mind plugging him in right here if we want to kind of get a big game stack going. But I do want to address the rest of the tight ends. So we've got Zach Ertz, been fantastic. He was my top guy this past weekend at this salary level. Then we had Logan Thomas. Zach Ertz gets a ton of targets. He's fine, perfectly playable. I don't like necessarily that the defense for the Rams is really, really good, but Zach Ertz is playable. Tyler Higbee, you know what? 9 targets, 11 targets. He still doesn't produce a ton of points, but he was fine this past week. Gerald Everett had the big week, 13 fantasy points. Not bad at all for him. I don't like the price hike up to 4,500 with that for a 12, 16, 17. Need about an 18 fantasy point day out of a Gerald Everett to make value. It's not bad. It's doable, I think. A couple of the usual suspects, Hawkinson, Knox, they're fine. Conklin's been okay for the Jets. Evan Ingram getting some targets this past week, 8 targets, 7 receptions, not doing a whole lot. Logan Thomas is a guy I really like a lot and actually might be my alternate in a game like this. So if we want to continue to attack this game, but maybe I want to pay up somewhere else and I want to go really cheap at tight end, I might plug in a little Logan Thomas right there. And then we could finish it out with whoever we want. I really like the way this build is going. I'm not going to plug in the last spot, but I'm just going to say here that any one of Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, Swift, Amon-Ra, the Sun God. I didn't address him, but he was awesome as well. Both weeks he was a core play for me. I loaded up on Amon-Ra, 12 targets, 12 targets, 12 targets. I think actually that probably would be the guy I try to plug in here. But, Joe Mixon's really interesting as well. So there you have it. DraftKings NFL Week 1 first look. I'll be back as always on Wednesday with the game plan where we take a look at all the games from betting and DFS angles and focus in on a core 4 of games with the GOAT himself, John Sensational Alessia. In addition, on Wednesday, I will be back with the Showdown Breakdown, Tri-GOAT Showdown Breakdown. So we'll be taking a look at the Thursday night game. And then, of course, on Fridays with tournament tactics as well. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and ring the bell, the notification bell, so you get notified whenever these videos come out. Good luck this week, everyone. I will see you next time on DraftKings First Look.